It is Thursday, my dudes. I think it's the wrong day to do that on. But anyway, everybody, it is day 280 of 10 cards rated. We're making it to that 300 mark. It's just going to be another month, and we'll get there. Yeah, around my birthday, we'll get. That's going to be exciting. But anyway, what's the first card of the day? Let's stop yapping. Here's Elite Scaleguard, which no, we have not done this one. We have not. We've just done a card with a similar name. Elite Scaleguard was originally in Fate Reforged. That's the set that was out when we started up the channel. We started looking at Magic cards on camera for the channel and uploading the content to YouTube. That's the set that was coming out. So I have a special tie to Fate Reforged, but this card probably sucks. 5 mana, 4 and a white for a 2/3 human soldier. When it ETBs, bolster 2. Whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it attacks, tap target creature, defending player controls. See, told you. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad Magic card. Bolster 2 says choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put 2 +1/+1 counters. So it's going to get much, much larger, right? So kind of a 5 mana 4/5 if you want to put it that way. And then like you tap stuff down. Sure. And your +1/+1 counter deck tap stuff down, but you don't want to pay 5 mana for that. You just don't. So I'll give Scaleguard a 3. Just right at a solid 3. I think that's what he gets. Eldrazi Linebreaker from MH3 is up next. This is a whole 40 cents cost. I remember being kind of impressed by this when I first saw it. 1, a colorless, and a red for a 3/3 Eldrazi with Devoid and Trample. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains haste and gets +X/+0 until end of turn. X being the number of Eldrazi you control. So it doesn't have to be this guy either. It's target creature you control. So play a huge dude, it gets haste. Play a huge Eldrazi in the later game, and it gets haste. You know, this guy has haste. It's not target other creature or another target creature you control. So you play this dude on turn 3. He's at least a 3/3 trample. At least a 3/3 trample haste. But if you have 2 other Eldrazi, he's like a 3 mana 5/3 haste on turn 3 with trample. It seems. I'm still impressed by him. I think it's just an example of how good Magic cards are getting nowadays. I like him, man. I'm always going to like this guy every time I read him. Not sure about Commander. Not really, but in your Eldrazi deck, he might still have a place. You know, not your colorless Eldrazi deck, but some deck or another, he could still have a place. I'm going to give him a 5. I will. Because this is a 3 mana way of giving anything haste. So long as you can play this guy, you have a way to get the colorless mana or whatever. This is like a Rhythm of the Wild or something like that. You know, it's a 3 mana way to give a creature haste every turn. And I like those. I probably shouldn't give him a 5. But like, the dude could get huge. He's got good stats. 4.8, and that's as low as I go. Because he's still 3 mana. One guy gets haste every turn, and that's good. That's pretty good. But next is Urge to Feed. This pretty cool from World Wake here. So a vampire removal spell. Double black mana for an instant. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. You may tap any number of untapped vampires you control. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those vampires. So this is instant speed, meaning that you do it during your opponent's turn, or more likely during their combat step. So you can block down with all your vampires and kill one of their guys, or nerf one of their guys, and give all your vampires +1/+1, blow out the rest of their team. Urge to Feed is really good, and I actually think that it should go in any vampire commander deck, period. You know, you might think that you don't need removal spells, or that maybe just a +1/+1 counter is not good enough. But again, this is kind of like remove an important guy anywhere on the table and anthem every single one of your zombies, because it's taking place on an opponent's turn anyway. You can usually tap your creatures down. You don't have to care that much. So I think Urge to Feed is like one of the best like creature type matters removal spells like kind of ever printed in some ways. You know, you can really hurt people with this. So I'm going to give Urge to Feed a solid 5. I'm serious this time. I'm serious. A good enough removal spell can definitely be a 5 or a 6 or a 7. You know, Swords to Plowshare is like a 9. You know, like good removal spells are fantastic. And I think that even though this one's obviously pretty narrow, the deck that wants to play it can leverage it like really, really well and blow people out with it sometimes. So I've always loved Urge to Feed. I think it deserves a decent score. Next is Scholar of the Ages from Core Set 2020. 7 mana, 5 and double blue for a 3/3 human wizard. When she enters the battlefield, return up to 2 target instant and or sorcery cards from your yard to your hand. What a blink target that is, right? You blink her, you get 2 instants or sorceries back. You blink her again, and you get the first spell that blinked her plus another one, and then you blink her for a third time. You get one of the spells that blunked her, and you get both spells that blunked her, and you blink her again. You're blinking her a lot. Hold off on blanking so much. You know what I'm saying? Either in any case, let's see if you can get her in play in the first place, and that's easier said than done. So you can't get too excited about the lady, but that is a heck of an ETB, blah, blah. So let your brain go crazy on it, but there's a price is all I'm going to say. I will give her, though, a 3.7. I think maybe I'm being generous today, but that is a very exciting ETB trigger. Usually you get 1. You telling me I get 2? And now again with blink triggers, you're like, or like blink spells, you're creating card advantage effectively. That's really, really good. But next is Kongming, the Sleeping Dragon over here. This is also printed in Commander 2013. So it doesn't have to cost you $25 from Portal 3 Kingdoms. It could just cost you 25 cents. 4 mana, 2 and double white for a 2/2 legendary human advisor. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. That's the whole thing. There's an Anthem effect for double what an Anthem effect you really want one to cost in modern, Commander Magic. At the very least, it costs 1 more mana than you want one to cost, and it's a little bit more removable. So I'm not like in love with it, but I've always liked Portal 3 Kingdoms cards themselves. They're really cool. That said, I can't hate on this guy too much. At least he's an Anthem, so I'll give him like a 3.4, but you're probably not going to play him in your deck. Unless you're doing a thing where like every single creature is an Anthem effect, then he might be fun. I'll bump him up to a 3.5. I'll bump him up to 3.5. Cancel level. About what I would give a cancel. You know what I mean? Next is Terramorphic Expanse. We've done this before. I always give this like a 7. I think it's a pretty good fetch line. Next is Agonizing Memories from Weatherlight. Oh, man. 4 mana. Look at that art. Look at that Mike Dringenberg art there. 4 mana, 2 and double black for a sorcery. Look at target player's hand. Choose 2 of those cards and put them on the top of his or her library in any order. So this doesn't look like it's, too much of a Magic card, right? This is so annoying. This card is incredibly annoying. This replaces 2 draw steps. I had a buddy back in the day that played 4 of this in his like blue-black control deck, and it got to the point where this is almost the win condition. Because he would like Agonizing Memories, and then he would play like Recall or something else that lets him get the thing back from his graveyard and play Agonizing Memories again, and he would just basically keep you from drawing a card for like the rest of the game, and it was so agonizing that you eventually just quit, and the whole time he's got more mana to like develop his board state or whatever. So this kind of feels in some ways like a Plow Under, that instead of putting lands on top, puts, either useless cards or whatever back on top. They already had them in their hand. It's not like they didn't already have access to them. You know what I mean? So they're not drawing anything new for at least 2 turns. And that is better than it looks. I'll say that much. Not a great card in Commander, but on the kitchen table 1v1 back in the day, this card was really, really, really irritating. Like, imagine playing against it. Really, really aggravating card, but I'm not going to give it more than like a 3. It's in a vacuum. It's not that great, but I have been very put off by this card in the past is all I'm going to say. I have agonizing memories of the card, I guess you could say. Well, we'll move on to Summoner's Bane. 4 mana, 2 and double blue for an instant. Counter target creature spell. Put a 2/2 blue illusion creature token onto the battlefield. This originally printed in Zendikar, and only one other time, but still holding steady at 10 cents here, 10 to 15, Cool art, by the way, by Cyril Vanderhagen. I kind of like the classic wizard, and down here, and like the funky face on like a wall of glass stalactites and stalagmites or whatever's going on here. A lot of cool stuff. I like just classic, high fantasy art. But one way or the other, the card's not that great. I don't like Essence Scatter or Remove Soul. They're the same card that costs twice as much. That's not great. Even if it gets me a guy, I don't love it. So I'll just give this a 2.8. Keep it pushing. To Plains, that gets a 5. Doesn't count. Defense Grid. Now that's a card. This was originally from Urza's Legacy. 2 mana for an artifact. During each player's turn, spells played by another player cost an additional 3 mana. This costs $10 to get from Urza's Legacy right now. I bet you could get a heavily played version for less than that, and I think it's a steal. You can get a retro artifact version that looks exactly like it for $4. Look at that. Look at that right there. So that's pretty cool. Defense Grid is a good card. It really is. Defense Grid is a fine Magic card. It doesn't completely make it to where other people can't interrupt what you're doing or whatever, but it does help an awful lot. And, you have to not want to do stuff during other people's turns, but there's plenty of artifact decks that really don't. They're decks full of artifacts. They can't do anything during your turn, except for maybe activate artifacts. But I don't know. I feel like this doesn't get enough love. I really don't. But still $4 at the lowest right now and $10 at the highest. So I guess somebody's playing it out there. Defense Grid, I will give a 6.7. I don't love that it's symmetrical, but it does help keep people off your back during your turn. But next is Cleric Class. Cool card. This is from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. It's about $1.50 right now, amazingly. I didn't realize it had gotten up that high. A single white mana for a class enchantment. If you would gain life, you gain that much life +1 instead. Good enough already. But at level 2, which costs 4 mana, 3 and a white, whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. At level 3, 4 and a white, 5 total mana. When this class becomes level 3, return a creature card from your yard to the battlefield and gain life equal to its toughness. So eventually a Reanimator spell, but it costs 10 mana to get to the Reanimator part. That said, you're obviously paying in installments. Level 2 is actually pretty good here, and I know that because this is actually one of the Magic cards that I have most recently had resolved against me in real life. When my cousin Jason came over, we played like 4 games of Commander 1v1, and he played Hope S Time one time. And he resolved Cleric Class like on turn 1, and it turned out to be really good for the rest of the game. Really, really good. And the level 2 mode on it ended up being one of the best parts of it in a lot of ways, but obviously in Hope S Time, if you gain more life, you get to mill more cards, so it was good for that reason. And just 1 mana for that base effect is really good in life gain decks. But again, it's worth getting to level 2, where suddenly it provides like real offense whenever you gain life, and you're gaining life a lot. You're getting a lot of those triggers. So I like Cleric Class a lot. It is pretty narrow, has to go just in the life gain decks, but it's really, really good there. And it's pretty efficient too. So I'm going to give this card a 6.5. Serious. It's very good there. Next is Phantom Nomad from Judgment, and really only Judgment ever. This is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 0/0 Nomad Spirit. It enters with 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and if damage would be dealt to it, prevent that damage and remove 1 +1/+1 counter. So again, one of the Phantom creatures from Judgment. This one a kind of common drafty version of it, but it's kind of neat. Kind of neat, because if you can put more +1/+1 counters on it, that basically means that it can just take damage for the entire rest of the game and never actually die. So Phantom creatures are really cool, but I'm not sure how great they are in general. So I'm going to give this a 3.2. I think that, again, Phantom creatures are very strong in +1/+1 counter decks specifically. But again, the word of the day is narrow. That's narrow, but somewhat powerful. So 3.2, I might play it from time to time. Probably not. Coppercoat Vanguard is the last card of the day, and that is a doozy. Let's look at this one right here. It's a cool looking Magic card, but not really what a Magic card's supposed to look like. So let's look at this one. This is 2 mana, 1 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier. Each other human you control gets +1/+0 and has Ward 1. This you can get for 19 cents right now, and I suggest you do so. I think that if you're ever going to build humans in, Commander, for whatever reason, you play this. And honestly, I think you might want to just look at all the creatures in your deck and be like, okay, I've got 25 guys in my deck, 25 guys, and like 17 of them are human. I can probably fit Coppercoat Vanguard. Earlier I was saying we want to pay 2 mana for Anthem effects, and this is a good example of a great one. Ward 1 is incredible to just have slapped on the card. That's almost as important as the +1/+0 some of the time. Just fantastic. It doesn't just give soldiers, it actually gives like one of the most relevant creature types in the game, a real Anthem effect for just 2 mana, and also makes them harder to target. So if your commander happens to be a human, the Ward 1 might be relevant too. A lot of stuff I've always liked about Vanguard. It's not just a standard card. It's going to rotate out of standard soon. We should probably play it while we got them. But in any case, I think this is a playable commander card. I really do. As far as anthems go and protection goes and efficiency goes, it just kind of does everything, man. I'll give it like a 5.3 at least. You know, I think it's a good Magic card. But that is all for Thursday. I'll see yous on Fridays. Bye then. I don't know what this is. Bye.